Hello, viewers. This is your host, Dr. Ajaz Qureshi from Toronto, Canada. We are live with our esteemed guest, Mr. Pervez Akhter from New Jersey today. He is at the Thomas Edison Museum in Menlo Park, New Jersey. Welcome, Mr. Pervez Akhter.
अच्छा, अस्सलाम वालेकुम जी। मैं परवेज़ अख्तर हूँ और यहाँ पे मैं इस वक्त हूँ न्यू जर्सी मेनलो पार्क में। और मैं इस वक्त कैमरा टर्न कर रहा हूँ इसकी बैक साइड पर, आपको नज़र आएगा ये वो थॉमस एडिसन म्यूज़ियम है। थोड़ा सा मैं आपको इसका बैकग्राउंड दिखा दूँ, इसके अराउंड में क्या है। ये वो सड़कें हैं जहाँ पे वो इतना एक इन्वेंटर जो था, दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा मेरे हिसाब से इन्वेंटर था, वो यहाँ पे रहता था, यहाँ पे काम करता था, ज़िंदगी गुजारता था ज़ाहिर है, और दूसरे उसके मशागिल थे। और यहाँ पर एक्चुअली हम डॉक्टर साहब की ताउन से आए हैं, तो उसके लिए पीछे राज ये है कि हम ये चाहते हैं कि हमारे जो बच्चे हैं, पाकिस्तानी बच्चे या फॉर दैट मैटर हिंदुस्तानी बच्चे जो इसमें दिलचस्पी लेना चाहें, उनको इंस्पिरेशन मिले। इंस्पिरेशन ये नहीं कि उसको बहुत बड़ी कोई दौलत थी उसके पास, ऐसा नहीं था। दौलत उसके बाद में आई, पहले उसके पास शौक़ था। हमारे बच्चों के पास शौक़ हो तो बाकी काम आसानी से हो जाएंगे। और हुआ इस तरह से था कि उसने जब पहली इन्वेंशन की थी, उसके बाद उसके सारी की सारी जो दौलत थी उस इन्वेंशन की, सारी उसने री इन्वेंशन पे लगा दी थी। इस तरह से उसने अपनी एक री इन्वेंशन या इन्वेंशन फैक्ट्री बनाई थी। उसकी वजह से उसके पास 1098 इन्वेंशन थी। उसके बाद दूसरे नंबर पे जो बड़ा इन्वेंटर है, शायद उससे 1/3 से भी कम है। तो इस तरह से इस बंदे का जो तारीख में मकाम है, टेक्नोलॉजी की तारीख में बहुत बुलंद है, और हम ये चाहते हैं कि हमारे बच्चे उससे इंस्पायर्ड हों। अब मैं उसमें एंटर हो रहा हूँ, टिकट वगैरह मैंने पहले से ख़रीदा हुआ है। तो यहाँ पे देख लें, ये इस वक्त म्यूज़ियम ओपन है, फूड्स वगैरह अलाउड नहीं है। उसके बाद मैं बोल नहीं पाऊँगा, आप लोग सिर्फ सुनेंगे, और वो उन लोगों को सुनेंगे जो यहाँ पे टूर को गाइड कर रहे हैं। ठीक है। Hello everyone, this is the staff of this museum. Okay, very friendly people, and this is where the entrance is. Of course we will give you full videos and everything later on. This is called the, let me call it, reception area. And just so you know, this is the young Edison. Now, what I will do is I will go inside the room where other people are talking, so I will only be listening. Dr. Saab, is that okay?
Yes.
Probably remember, this was the mouthpiece of your telephone. Okay? And by the way, it's called a carbon button microphone. That first word came to carbon. Any idea where I got the carbon from? Remember the shed with all the kerosene lamps? That's where it came from. So that's very, very important. Okay? All right. And by the way, there was this little ongoing feud between Bell and Edison. Edison didn't like the way Bell used to answer his phone when it rang. He would say, "Ahoy!" like he was on a ship. Edison said, "That's terrible." Edison came up with his own word, "Hello." That was an Edison word. People used to say hello and shake hands and all that, but he coined it for the telephone. So they used to argue, "Hello, ahoy, hello, ahoy." As it happened, poor Bell died first. And that's why we say hello. It's true story. Okay, so, all right, so now I told this story, and it was right about here in the story where his first wife passes away. When she passes away, that's what he looked like. He was 41 years old. She was 29 years old when she passed away. So anyway, his friends thought that he should not be without a wife. He's got 3 children. He's an inventor, and he needs his time. So they introduced him to a young woman. Her name was Minor Miller. They brought him up to Massachusetts, in Boston area, and they paraded these beautiful debutantes past him. They were from 8 to 21 years old. And so they caught on together. So they wound up getting married within the 2 years. And he asked her, "Where would you like to live? Would you like to live in Menlo Park?" And she, "Not a chance. That's where the first wife was. You know how that goes." And he said, "Would you like to live in New York City?" "Nah, too busy." So they settled on West Orange, which is only about 15 miles north of us, as most of you know. And he buys this big, beautiful mansion. I mean, it's beautiful. It still is. and it's got about 18 rooms in it, and it's in a very exclusive area, and he winds up buying it for about $175,000. Now that doesn't sound like a whole lot of money. Back then, that was a lot of money. That was equivalent to about $4 million in today's time. So anyway, so he buys it from the bank. It was a repossession. He says, a repossession? How come you got this house back? He says, well, the owner couldn't pay the mortgage. Really? He says, what did the owner do? Well, he was a bookkeeper. A bookkeeper? How does a bookkeeper afford a house like that? Well, he was embezzling from his employer.
Yeah.
And he couldn't pay the mortgage because they put him in jail. But he built this house, and he would steal that money. He bought furniture from all over the world, all over Europe and Asia, and he had paintings from the masters hanging all over the house. He had Persian rugs. I mean, that place was beautiful. So anyway, so he winds up moving in there with his family, and they wind up having 3 more children with his second wife. So the first wife, he had a girl and 2 boys. And the second wife, he also had a girl and 2 boys, 6 children altogether. And out of all, people always ask me this, out of all these 6 children, how many heirs are left? None. Barely none. Out of all these children, only this girl had offspring. She had 4 boys. But of course, she married a man by the name of John Sloan. So her name, Edison, wasn't in there. So no longer exists. So she took care of it, though. She made the first boy, his name was John Edison Sloan. The second one was Thomas Edison Sloan, and so forth. She got the Edison name in there 4 times. And we got to meet John Sloan, the oldest one. He came down here. He wrote a book about his grandfather. And the president of our little nonprofit met him. He said, yeah, I just made a book on that. He said, really? He says, when was the last time you were in Menlo Park? And he had to admit, he said, I've never been to Menlo Park. What? You wrote a book about your grandfather and you've never even been here? So he invited him down. And the Sunday he came down, we had kids here and balloons, and the scouts were here, and we had tents, and we had the band and everything. We really made the guy feel this big. He had to give a speech in front of everybody that he'd never been here before. Anyway, we got to meet him, which was interesting. Anyway, so that was the story on that. So down the street from the home that he buys up in West Orange, there was a big piece of property for sale. So he winds up buying that. It was about 19, 20 acres. And he buys that, and he builds his next laboratory there. And it was this time he builds the laboratory out of bricks. Not going to take a chance like over here where all the buildings disappear. So you can still go there. That laboratory still exists. Anyway, so he goes into there, and he's thinking to himself, this is now 10 years after he invented the phonograph. He says, what am I going to work on first? Laboratory. And he thinks, you know what? I'm going to go to work on my phonograph. I haven't touched it in 10 years. So he pulls that thing out of the mothballs, and this is the first one to come out of that factory, 1898. But originally, when I first showed you this, for those who were here, there's tinfoil wrapped around the drum. Well, here it is 10 years later, and if you look carefully, there's no tinfoil in this phonograph. This is now the tinfoil has been replaced by this waxed cylinder. The music is now on this wax cylinder rather than onto that tinfoil. See, the problem with the tinfoil is that you play it a couple of times and then the needle would rip through it and cut, and that was the end of it. Or you put it back on and you couldn't line up the tinfoil so that you'd get a bump, and it wasn't very good. But this really worked very well. And you'll never guess who invented this waxed cylinder to replace that. Alexander Graham Bell. Now Bell, his family his mother and father were both hard of hearing. In fact, everybody in the area that he came from was hard of hearing. There's a good story about that. I can't tell you. Don't have the time. But so he decided to make this wax cylinder to make it clearer, and he took the phonograph and he added this horn to it because the horn makes things sound louder. Even though it's really not louder, it focuses the sound. It makes it sound louder than it really is. So I'm going to play this for you, and this is a wind-up machine like this. Okay, it's like an old wristwatch. You have to wind it up, and I'm going to release the spring. I'm just going to make this turn, and this over here is the diaphragm that I spoke about here. Underneath there is a little tiny needle that vibrates, because on this cylinder it's got all the vibrations were put on here already. It's been recorded on. So all I have to do is put the needle down right on the spot where I want it to play.
All night long they chatter away, all day long they're happy and gay, swinging and singing in a funky way. I love what you. Daddy, looking for me, I love you too. And when they were both made man and wife, they shouted out this day after life returned from their honeymoon.
How was that for
Awesome.
So wax is very soft.
It's actually hard. It's harder than you would think. It's actually like a paraffin. It wasn't like candle wax. It was some different mixture.
Like a bowling alley wax?
Yeah.
Oh.
Much harder, yeah. And so once you put the impression on there, it stays. It stays. And he was asked, how many times are you going to be able to play that? And he said, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5,000. I've been here for 10 years, and this has been on here for 10 years. I don't know, we must have played this 100,000 times.
What's touching the wax? What's reading?
A needle.
It's still a needle.
It's a needle, yeah. A needle. Here's the diaphragm. Here's the needle underneath it. So the needle's attached to that. It goes up and down, which moves the diaphragm up and down, and it rides in this cylinder line.
How would they get the music on there?
All right, so here's exactly what happened. So somebody said to him, Mr. Edison, oh, I love that song with the monkeys. Can I have that copy of that? And he said, was it different then?
Yeah.
He says, could I have a copy of that? He says, copy? No, we don't make copies. Each one was an original. So he says, but I thought about it. He says, I'm going to do something about it. That's a good idea. See, the way they made the recording is they had a blank one of these wax cylinders. They would put that on, and then they would start turning, and the singer would sing in here, and the voice would go down here, and the vibrations would vibrate the diaphragm, which would vibrate the needle underneath it, and would put marks on the brand new cylinder, and that's how they made it. So that answers your question, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so then he said, but as far as making copies, he said, I got an idea. Well, it took him 2 years for this idea. I tell you in 10 seconds, but it took 2 years. He took that blue wax cylinder, and he gold-plated it and made a mold out of it. And then he put hot wax inside the mold. When it cooled off, he pulled it out, and he had an exact copy of the original. So he went into business selling
Wax cylinders.
Wax cylinders.
Here it goes. Edison gold molded records.
Oh, cool. So it had like different music on there for each one. That's neat. Too bad we don't do that anymore. I'm still around. I'm like, oh,
okay.
I can't stand still like this forever. All right. Okay. So he started the recording industry the way we know it. So all these people that we know that sing and make records and all that. So now you go down to the corner store and up on the shelf there are all these different songs like this, and you say, oh, there's that Chipmunk song or whatever. So you buy it for just 35 cents. You take it home like this. You take the cover off here. You stick your fingers in here like that. And you would put this on your phonograph, and it would play. Now that is providing you had a phonograph, because these were about $65. That doesn't sound like much today, but back then people were earning 15 cents an hour. $65 was a lot of money. And by the way, he started the recording industry. And what happens when you sell 1 million records? Don't they give you a gold record? That's where that came from, the gold record, right? I don't know what happens to platinum.
they get a day.
Anyway, so he starts the recording industry, and of course, that's the start of everything. Anyway, so this was 1898, and you could have bought this for $65. Now I need to push you out. We're going to move on to this side. Okay, so the next step was in 1902, which was just 4 years later, Edison comes out with this one. Look at this. A little portable. You could take this to school, to work, to church, any place you needed music. I call this the original iPod.
That's really neat. Boombox.
Boombox. this is very simple. It's so easy to see how it works. This is a wind-up machine the same way, right? And when I can lift this away, and what's underneath here is in the round circle, that's the diaphragm, and there's the little tiny needle up in the inside here that rides on the wax cylinder. This is a wind-up machine. I make it turn, and then I can put the needle down, anything, whatever's underneath it, will play.
That's really cool.
There you go. So that's 18. No, I'm sorry. This is 1902. 1902.
So they're not using diamonds yet for the needles.
No, but
at this point.
Yeah, they switched somewhere around here. They started using the diamonds. But anyway, this one, 4 years later, you could now have bought this for $20. Still sounds cheap.
That sounds really good. For $20.
Yeah.
And I tell the kids, I said, boy, can you imagine if you were ever invited to a party and you had one of these?
Oh, man.
You had enough of these wax cylinders, you could have been a DJ.
Right?
All right, so that's 1902. But uh-oh, look at this baby. This came out in 1915. And something else happened in 1915.
Discs.
Instead of the wax cylinder like that, this is what us old people call a record. A record.
I know where records are. I love them.
And so Edison didn't invent this format to put the music on. He didn't like it because it wasn't the wax cylinder that he's been used to. But he realized, this has a 4-minute recording. Well, this has got a 4-minute recording. But guess what? There's another 4-minute recording on that side. And this was made of wax. You can go and break it. He made this unbreakable. It was a heavy carbon base. I don't even know what it's in really, but it's hard as a rock. We took this and we cut it up just to show you how thick it was. Look how thick that was.
Wow.
Right? 1/4 inch thick. I mean, we had to cut this with a jigsaw, but that's not fun. All right, so anyway, I'm going to play this one, but I want you to see, though, there's a couple of little things on here. First of all, this round circle, that's the same diaphragm that I've been talking about. Underneath there is the needle. And just as I put the horn here and it got louder, right? Here's what he did with the horn. He wrapped the horn around, and the horn's on the inside of the box.
Oh,
See?
oh yeah.
Right? Okay, everybody see that? You should. Once I start playing this, I'd like everybody to take a quick peek inside here. See? There's a feature in here that everybody should see. Here we go. So I'm going to release the spring, which makes this turn. I'm going to put the needle down if I catch it in the right spot.
Nice.
And here's the feature. Look in here. A volume control.
That's really neat. I'm glad we have her. So, God bless.
So when your mother used to yell at you, turn that thing down, you would have to do this, right? All right, so that's the story. Now, of course, all of these things happened up in West Orange, but just to give you a complete story on him, you came here, you want to hear the whole story. You don't want me to stop right now. So the next story is that he came home from a hard day's work from the laboratory, and he had this big, beautiful mansion, and he walks in and he sees his children playing on the floor of the living room with one of those flip books, you fan the pages,
Right.
and it looks like an animation is moving. And he looked at that, hey, he says, I can make a motion picture camera to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. So the next day he goes into work and he gets a bunch of wood and he starts building this wooden box, and he puts a lens on the front of it to focus an image down on film. He puts a door on the side with a handle so he can crank the film. He's got everything he needs for his camera, but he has no film. Mm-hmm. But he has a good friend by the name of George Eastman of Eastman Kodak.
Rochester.
Fujifilm, for those of you who don't know. All right? George Eastman invented soft film. Prior to George, all photography used to be done on glass plates. But George came up with this process on celluloid. That's the word. Celluloid. And that made soft film, like negative film. You've seen negative film? So he goes to George and says, George, I need some of your new film. He says, for my new camera. He says, yes, I'll give you whatever you need. He says, it's 70 millimeters wide. Oh, he says, that's too big. Could you cut that in half and make it 35 millimeters? And that's where 35 millimeter film came from. So he puts the 35 millimeter film in his new camera, he gets it all loaded, he closes the door, he starts to crank the handle. And just as he's cranking the handle, one of his men sneezes right in front of him. And
How are you, Sir
recorded on film is this man sneezing. Well, thankfully, he had the forethought to immediately upload that to YouTube.
I just wanted to find out a little more about you. Your profile tells me some information that you are advocate at the High Court. Are you still the advocate?
He starts the motion picture industry that we know. I mean, you think about all these things that the guy did. But so he
no, you're right.
Filming things.
You're right. Yeah, you're working on the reunification of the subcontinent, and I'm up for it. That's why we are connected. And thank you very much for coming live with Prajesh. Thank you so much for that. And so let's do this. Why don't you send me a little bio of yourself, and then I will put that in the introduction, and then we'll be asking questions around that. What do you think?
He then went to New York and opened up a storefront on 34th Street, right where Macy's is today. And the storefront, he built these wooden boxes, and you would have to put some coins into it, and then you'd look into a viewfinder, and it would drive a loop of film around, and you could see the girl dancing or the horse races. And people, when they heard about this, they were lined up around the corner. They had never seen motion pictures, of course, because they were no around. So people were coming in, and they were putting that money in there. They were looking in there, and they would put
That's right.
Pay per view.
Yeah.
And so he was doing fine. He making money hand over fist.
No. I didn't
look into that dirty slot that everybody else.
I connected. I saw you live, so I thought maybe I can connect with you. That's why I messaged. You see, I have sent you a note earlier, right?
हेलो डॉक्टर साहब. हाँ, ये आप अपना म्यूट कर दीजिए, इसलिए कि जब आप बोल रहे हैं तो यहाँ पर
He turns it on and he's able to project the picture 2 feet away. This doesn't work like I expected. So he takes the box, opens up the box, and he looks in the back, and no wonder there's this little tiny flashlight bulb in the back to project. That's not bright enough. Well, here's a guy that knew all about bulbs. So he took that bulb out, he put a real bright bulb in it, and he put a mirror behind it. Now he was able to project 40 feet away. So he takes his invention, he goes into New York City. Right there where Macy's is today, there was an old vaudeville theater. And he goes in there and he says, could I try my new invention out in here? And he says, oh, of course, Mr. Edison. Everybody knew Thomas Edison. So Mr. Edison puts his projector right between the aisles. And they close the curtains and they hang up a bed sheet, a nice white bed sheet. And he turns it on and he projects an image onto this bed sheet, 40 feet away, life-size pictures. Wow, this is a turn of events. And so he gets credit for having invented motion pictures, the way motion pictures, plus the theater, the big white screen, nice soft chair, right? So he gets credit for that too. So he started that industry. And he then, up in West Orange, he built a building to make motion pictures in. It was called the Black Maria. If you've been there, you haven't been in. It's a building about the size of this one. But he put the building on a pivot, he was able to turn it like a lazy Susan, and he put wheels on the 4 corners of the building. And inside, he built a stage so that the actors could act. And he was able to lift the roof so that the sunlight would come in and bathe the stage in sunlight, because they needed a lot of light to make it work. So they would start filming, and after about an hour, when the sun moved, they would go outside and they would move the whole building around on the wheels to keep it in line with the sun. And they were able to film in there for about 8 hours, 12 hours. So finally, he made a lot of movies inside, and then he decided he was going to take his operation outside and make a outdoor movie. So he packs up all his gear and his men, and they move up to Fort Lee, New Jersey. You know where that is? It's where the George Washington Bridge comes in on this side. That's Fort Lee, New Jersey. So he starts filming up there, making outdoor movies. Wow, when the world heard that Thomas Edison, the inventor of motion pictures, is now up in Fort Lee, New Jersey, making movies, 27 other film companies opened up there, causing that to become the first movie capital of the world, Fort Lee, New Jersey. Now, why did he pick Fort Lee? Well, if you're going to make a movie, you would need actors. Where would you get actors from? Maybe from Broadway? Well, it was a lot easier to get them from Broadway, put them on a boat, bring them to Fort Lee, than it was to take them up into the mountains of West Orange, right? So that's why he picked that spot. Well, out of the 27 film companies that started there, there's only one left. Universal Studios, out of the 27, right? So there you go. So that became the very first movie capital of the world until 1915, when somebody said, you know, the weather here in New Jersey is so rotten. Why don't we move it to California, to Hollywood? And that's what they did. 1915, Hollywood became the next movie capital of the world. And since then, they moved it again. Now it's in Bollywood. Right? Okay. So that's the story of motion pictures. Of course, you know, he added the sound later to it and all that. And it was he did it from start to finish. The man did everything. And the last basic story, want to hear one more story? One more story?
Sure. Yes.
Last story is about this device up here. This was called, there was a mine up in Ogdensburg, New Jersey. And they said, Mr. Edison, we get steel, iron out of the ground. And this is a rock that came right out of the ground. So you can see the magnetic properties. And he said, we take this rock and we crush it up and we make powder out of it. And then it comes down a conveyor belt. We have people picking out only just the black stones. The rest of the stuff is sand and gravel. He says, could you help us with that to separate that? He thought, yeah, that's easy. So he goes up there and he builds this tower. It's about 40 feet high, big tall tower. And this is how it works. Here's a photograph. Here's a picture of his patent application. On the top, there was like a funnel where you put the granules. And on the side was a gigantic magnet. And so they would put the iron down up in the top. It would come down this funnel, and he would turn on the magnet. And anything that was magnetic would get pulled over to the magnet, and then gravity would drop it into a box. And anything that wasn't magnetic would go straight down and separate the iron from everything else. That's pretty good. So he was doing very well. It's called the ore separator. And he thought, this mining is a piece of cake. So he winds up buying the mine from them, and he winds up turning it around. After I think it was 9 years he was there. He changed the machinery. He made it bigger, better, to crush it finer and all that stuff. He did it over and over. I went up to visit there maybe a year ago, and the guy heard I was from here. He gave me the royal treatment. He told me all about everything that Edison had done up there in Ogdensburg. He said the first thing he did is he came in and he changed the helmet. Took the burning flame off here, and he put a flashlight bulb up here, and he put a battery on the miner's hip, and they went in there for 8 hours. That light was on. That was the first thing he did, and they still use them, as you know. And by the way, that battery. Did you ever go to the store and you buy those AA's and AAA's and all that? They said the alkaline cell. Well, that was the Edison invention. Edison invented that alkaline cell, and out of all the things that he ever did, that was the thing he made the most money on, the alkaline cell, believe it or not. Anyway, so he spent the next 7 or 8 years up there changing everything around, and all of a sudden, what he was getting out of the ground was not a good quality iron. And so all of a sudden, up in Minnesota, they found a vein of iron that was so pure, you could just scoop it up, melt it down, and build cars with it. And he says, well, that's the end of this. So he closed up his mine. And on his final ride home with his accountant said, do you know what that operation cost you? I had no idea. He says, he did some calculations. And he says, over $4 million in those days' money. $4 million. He thought about it. Yeah, but I had a lot of fun spending it. So he gets back to his house in West Orange. His wife welcomed him because he's been away for a long time, in and out. And finally, any other man would have been totally pounded down, that he lost $4 million. About 2 years later, he got another idea. He went right back up into that mine and opened up the Edison Portland Cement Company. And he made this brand new cement, lots and lots of it. And they mixed all that old sand and gravel that they've been separating for years right? They mixed it in and they'd start making bags, 80-pound bags, just like you buy them in Home Depot today, 80-pound bags. And they start stockpiling these bags. And finally, they made their first sale in 1923. The first sale came through. They wanted 155,000 bags of his cement. And they built Yankee Stadium. What do you think of that?
Oh my.
Yeah. So anyway, 2 years later, he gets another big order. They built the Panama Canal using his cement. So he got his money back. And when he died, he had about $12 million in the bank. In those days, money, that was a lot of money. There you go. Okay. So now you know absolutely everything that I know about Thomas Edison. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Panama Canals earlier.
No, 2 years after. 25.
Yeah, we were there, but I don't remember what year it was.
It opened 19.
Well, I might have started, but I know that's the story. I read it. Okay, there's a few things here. Put your hands on if you want to see them.
डॉक्टर साहब
जी जनाब.
हाँ अब मैं इसको रिकॉर्डिंग जारी रखूं या जितना
नहीं, मेरे ख्याल है काफी हो गया है. तो इसको हम एंड करते हैं टेलीकास्ट को. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका. सॉरी, मुझे वो माइक ऑफ करना मैं भूल गया और मैं कन्वर्सेशन में, क्योंकि आप सोलो गए हुए थे. सॉरी अबाउट दैट.
नहीं
और इंशाल्लाह फिर आपसे बात होती है.
सर 1 मिनट और दीजिए मुझे.
जी जी.
कि मैं इन खास तौर से जो हमारे यंगस्टर्स हैं उनसे मुखातिब होना चाहूँगा.
जी जी.
मुझे उम्मीद है कि इससे इंस्पायर होंगे.
बिल्कुल.
इंस्पिरेशन देखिए, 20 मिनट में हमने थॉमस एडिसन ये इसके बारे में मुश्किल से 0.001% बताया और अभी बहुत कुछ उसके बारे में सीखना बाकी है. तो हम ये करेंगे कि इससे रिलेटेड जितने वीडियोस अवेलेबल हैं वो लिंक कर देंगे, तो देन किड्स कैन गो एंड लुक एट देम.
ठीक है, दैट्स फाइन.
थैंक यू वेरी मच.
ओके जी, थैंक यू सो मच. थैंक यू व्यूअर्स.